Matthew 2, 1-12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road.
Well, happy Epiphany.
Happy Epiphany.
Today is Epiphany. We don't always get to worship right on January 6th. Today is the day we celebrate the light coming back into the world. And in a place like Minnesota, it comes at a good time of year, right? Thanks for reading that story, Deb. She calls it Epiphany, but we won't hold it against her. Well, what is Epiphany? I want us to do a little group think. What do you know about Epiphany? We just heard this story. Does anyone want to share some details? Enlightenment? Insight? Birth of something? First.
With a B.
First. Thanks, Bill. Spiritual awakening? Okay. Realization. These are really good answers. What about that first epiphany? What do we know about that? We just heard the story. What happened? What happened? Epiphany.
What happened, what I like about it is what happens to the wise men when they realize that Herod is after them. After that, which brings true to this day, Joseph and Mary and Jesus became illegal aliens.
That's right.
And went to Egypt.
That's right.
Thank God it wasn't them.
They cut the story short for the lectionary, so we don't hear the part about Mary and Joseph and Jesus having to escape to Egypt because Herod is killing all children, all boys under 2 years old. The slaughter of the innocents. So there's a lesson for us all there about ego and power and fear. So you guys are so advanced. I thought you were going to say like there were 3 kings, 3 wise men, and they went to find the baby Jesus. This is one of these stories that has lived in history, and it's taken on more meaning, and it's been sort of put together with other stories as it's gone on, so that we have sort of a folklore version that embellishes the biblical story that we just read. But even so, I think there's a lot for us to learn from it. Epiphany, some of you said these words. In the Greek dictionary, they have a variety of meanings, just like in Oxford English. And there are 3 versions of epiphany, and one means appearance, manifestation, coming. The other is to give light. And the third is to be revealed. So this is a time when we pay attention to the light coming into the world. It's the day we celebrate the arrival of the 3 kings, although there probably weren't 3 and they probably didn't get there that fast. But it's the 12th day of Christmas, the day that God says that you should have all your Christmas decorations down. It's the end of Christmas and the beginning of the Epiphany season. What we do know about those 3 wise men, or 3 kings, as we just sang, is that there were probably more than that. There were probably a group of astronomers, the scientists of the day, who studied the skies. They were probably of the Zoroastrian faith, which is one of the oldest monotheistic religions on earth, and they probably came from Persia, which is Iran today, and probably took them, you know, nobody knows how long it took them to get there. Some say it might have taken a couple of years. Some churches when they set up their manger scene, they put the 3 kings over on the other side and they move them slowly to get there so that they can be more accurate. And some people have said they had names. Anybody knows the names? Melchior, Casper, and Balthazar. But those were given to them by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow in the 19th century. But we have a lot of tradition around these 3. So why is their story so compelling? And what might we learn from these early seekers? First of all, the bad news, and Thomas already brought that up, and that is that ego can kill and power can kill. And we've heard the saying, what is that? How absolute power can corrupt absolutely. And the lectionary, though it spares us the end of the story, it shows how threatened Herod is. Probably the 3 wise men made the mistake of saying, do you know where the king of the Jews is? Because, you know, Herod was the king of the Jews. And so calling this baby a king, but to elevate someone, there was no other term. They didn't know what it was to be born, for God to be born in human form. Well, it's not also surprising that they went to Herod's place to find this new king. They probably thought it was his son that had been born. And Herod really freaked out when he found out there was a threat to his kingship and there might be another king out there. But we've got to give these wise men, these wise people, these astronomers, a lot of credit, because even though Herod told them, oh, go find the baby and come back and tell me about it, they knew something about that wasn't right. And they kept seeking that light that they saw. They kept seeking the star. He tried to trick them, but as they went, they listened more. They heard the scriptures that the scribes had read from. They also listened to their own intuition, and they listened to their own dreams. And when they found the light and found the baby, they listened to the truth that they saw before them, and they realized they could go back another way. So we got to give them a lot of credit. Also, some people say that they became famous because they actually stopped and asked for directions. I won't go there. That's very sexist of me. I apologize. But they did ask for directions, and they followed the star. And even when they got it wrong, they continued to seek and look and find that star. Second, they are the ones that noticed the star in the first place. They noticed it in the midst of their common daily routine. After all, they are astronomers, and it's their job to stare at the night sky and to chart the course of the stars. It's all too easy in our daily routines, day in and day out, to think we're seeing the same old thing again and again. It takes focus and attention to notice small changes, to notice little signs of hope. We have to look with keen eyes to find wonder in the midst of our everyday lives. E.B. White, who wrote Charlotte's Web, has one of my favorite quotes. Always be on the lookout for the presence of wonder. We have to be on the lookout for the presence of wonder, for the presence of light and hope trying to enter our lives. In the last few days, I saw in the paper that there was a survey done, and it was saying that at the turn of the year, often people feel very optimistic about the next year, and they make resolutions, and they have an idea of something good that will come, but that this year they found that people weren't as optimistic as they have been, because they see the darkness in the world, and it's harder to be optimistic, but we're kind of trying to stand up to that and choose a different way. Also, the thing about these wise people is that when they see the star, they act. Where do you see the light of God breaking through? They see that star and they follow it. They travel long miles, taking a few wrong turns. They leave their former lives behind, crossing not only geographical boundaries, but also boundaries of nation and religion and race. They must have traveled through a lot of darkness, led only by the light of that star. But they persisted. They didn't give up, and neither must we. So where do you see the light of God breaking into your life? Do you see a star in your own dark night that you hadn't noticed before? A little bit of hope somewhere in a person you've given up on, or in some part of yourself you've given up on? What does your star look like? Some people, as they begin the new year, and I've seen some of you posting this on Facebook, choose a word or an intention to guide you in the year ahead. Maybe you choose the word forgiveness, or healing, or mercy, or hope. What about choosing a star for yourself this year? It may seem far off and faint, but don't give up. Don't give up on yourself or anyone else for that matter. Take the next step, and then the next, until you are led home. You may make a few wrong turns. You may have to ask for directions more than once. You may find that once you get there, you can no longer go back the way you came. But don't worry about that now, because you won't want to go back. And when you feel like giving up, just remember, you might be the light in someone else's sky. In other words, this is our task for the coming year. Look for the light, follow the light, be the light. And before I say my amen to that, I'd just like to invite you, some of you as you're leaving, if you happen to drive a car and see people on the corners begging for money, at the party we made mission bags, and as you leave, you can take one, have it in your car, and so that if somebody's asking for help, you can give them a little bit of food and a little bit of hope, and be that light to someone else. So look for the light, follow the light, be the light. Amen.
Amen.